No offense, but that seems like sort of a dumb thing to do.
Hello everybody, so this is another shelf tour, library tour, and this time we're looking at that shelf. So we've done that shelf, we did the cartoonist stuff, there is some graphic novel stuff I haven't done yet, so we'll do graphic novels at some point, but this is the next shelf to go through. So please comment below if you've read these books or you're interested in reading these books or have an opinion about the author. Love to know. So these are hopefully prompts for chats. So let's have a look. So right at the end here, we've got a book that I'm desperate to read, but I haven't done it yet, which is the Charles Addams biography. So you may know, if you've been watching my channel, how much well, he is literally my favourite cartoonist, and I'm a cartoonist collector and deeply interested in cartoonists, and he is my favourite. So Charles Addams, obviously famous for the Addams family, and this is a book about him. So why the hell haven't I read it yet? I've had this since Christmas, so yeah, should have read this by now. So there we go. And then next one up is Binti. So I've talked about this on the channel before. Definitely recommend it. It's a new, relatively new novel in Afrofuturism, and Nnedi Okorafor is a really interesting author to look out for. And I've talked about this a fair bit, and I've did a video quite recently about the Twilight Zone in general, so there'll be another one coming soon. And this is the companion. This is the Bible for the Twilight Zone, so if you're a fan of the Twilight Zone, you can get hold of this. That'd be really cool. It's an amazing book. Nosferatu. So this is a book that I was hoping to read before Halloween this year, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. But I've read one other, well, I've read 2 graphic novels and a full book by Joe Hill so far, and I really like him. So I'm looking forward to this. I think this is the one that people have talked about more than any other, really. But Nosferatu, there, and there's a collection of Richard Matheson stories that's appeared out of the Richard Matheson box. Naughty. So Nightmare of 20,000 Feet, famously the episode of Twilight Zone that originally had William Shatner in the role of the man frightened on the plane, and then remade with John Lithgow in it, and then remade again recently for the Jordan Peele series of the Twilight Zone, which was good. It's a good episode. All 3 versions are good, but obviously the original had William Shatner in it, and Richard Matheson wrote it. But that's a collection of short stories. Frank Herbert's Dune. I want to start this month because there's a bunch of people reading it on BookTube at the moment, and it would be a reread for me, but I read it many years ago, so I want to read it again. But I'll probably read it, well, I don't know. Don't finish that sentence. Right. Again, another one I wanted to read before Halloween, but I haven't got there yet. Halloween has come along. So you're seeing this in November. I know when I'm going to schedule this. You're seeing this in November. Well, I'm actually doing this in September. So I could realistically have a bit of time to get to one of these that I wanted to read before Halloween. But anyway, The Troop, Nick Cutter. Have you read this? What do you think? Elmore James. Got a couple of Elmore James books here. So Get Shorty, which I have read, and Out of Sight, which I haven't read. So I love these designs. I think they're well good. So I'd like to get more of the Elmore James stuff in these designs if they're around. I don't know how many books they've put out in this edition, but I don't know, there's something cool about it. So Elmore James, right? It's no coincidence that the Elmore James books are there, because now there's a ton of crime books here. So I quite like this series. There's something quirky about it, and to be fair, there's 2 library books here, but because I want to do a video about the series at some point in more depth, I put those 2 library books there as well. So keep that in mind. So I've got the Consumata by Mickey Spillane and Max Allan Collins, both obviously big authors in their own right. And then the 2 library ones are Pimp by Ken Bruin and Jason Starr. I read a different one by them, and Lawrence Block's Cinnamon. So I got those out of the library, so they're not technically in my library. Donald Westlake's Call Me a Cab. Such a brilliant cover. I really like that cover. Call Me a Cab, Donald Westlake. And Donald Westlake again, Somebody Owes Me Money. And the girl with the deep blue eyes, literally a naked woman on the front. So this, if I'd have actually remembered to do the Garbogas tag, I didn't do it. One of the questions was, what would you be embarrassed to read on the bus? And obviously a book with literally a naked woman on it would be a little bit embarrassing. So Lawrence Block, the girl with the deep blue eyes, Lawrence Block is a major crime writer. So this is the one I've read by the Ken Bruin and Jason Starr combination, which is a book called Bust. And then we've got the 3 Stephen King ones in that series, Colorado Kid, and Later, and where's it gone? And Joyland. Now I think this is the best of the 3. So I really liked Later, but I do think Joyland, there's a magic to it, and I think it's just nice the way that I like it when Stephen King writes romantic stuff, and this is the second half of the book is quite romantic. So Joyland. So yeah, I've put those Stephen King ones there, even though I've got a couple of, well, three boxes of Stephen King books in my loft. I'll separate them because I want to do that thing about this series. Gore Vidal, Thieves Fall Out. Gore Vidal. I've kind of looked for the big authors in this series, like Joyce Carol Oates, The Triumph of the Spider Monkey. So there's that one in the crime series as well. And then one I have read in the series, The Hot Beat by Robert Silverberg. So I sought that one out because it's Robert Silverberg in that series, and it's quite cool. It's about the jazz scene as well. So I quite enjoyed that. That was a good book. Oh, and then there's 4 more still. Still got some more. It's not going to fall over. Blood Sugar, Daniel Kraus. I read that for an event. What event did I read it for? Can't remember. Anyway, I read that quite recently, and I quite enjoyed it, but it didn't really fit the event. I can't remember what the event was. It didn't really fit the event. Oh, it was Horror Mayhem, I think. Yeah, and it's not really horror. So, Jason Starr, The Next Time I Die. Great title. Quite a cool cover. The Next Time I Die. Jason Starr. Brian De Palma, Are Snakes Necessary? Brian De Palma and Susan Lahman. Yeah, I'll go with Lahman. That H is very important. And then Gregory, the big one here, Gregory MacDonald, Snatch. A lot of the crime books are quite short, but this is a bit heftier. So Snatch. And then, yeah, that's the crime thing in that shelf. There's a couple here. So I've got Selected Poems by Edgar Allan Poe, which is a nice thing to have. One of my editions of Make Room by Harry Harrison. I'm going to do a video about Harry Harrison next year probably, but this is a fantastic book, Make Room. 2 books here by Hiromi Kawakami. Strange Weather in Tokyo, which I've mentioned a few times on the channel. It's a brilliant book, and I would recommend it. It's just really well written. Not really. Well, it is a romance, but it's a relationship book, and it's as much about friendship as it is about romance. So yeah, Strange Weather in Tokyo is a really good book. And another one by her, Nakano Thrift Shop, which is a really good book. And what else have we got here? Oh, the next book in the Chronicles of St. Mary series, And the Rest is History. So that's number 8. So I'm on book 8. I really like this series. I think it's a bit of fun, and there's a lot of humour to it. And Max, the main character, I think is very likeable. So yeah, it's probably a lot of people would say it's YA, but I don't really know what that means and what that really tells you about the book. I don't really, but it's good. This is my favourite one out of the Wayfarer series. So this might have nipped down from the loft because I've used it in another video or something, but this is the second book in the Wayfarer series, and it's really good, and a great example of really well-written character study. So, Close and Common Orbit. And then here I've got 2 Yahtzee Crosshaw books. We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. Again, I've mentioned that a few times on my channel. So I mean, these are, because these shelves are either things I need to read or some of my favourites. So it's not surprising if I have read it. I'm saying this is something I've mentioned on the channel a few times. So I have mentioned this as a recommendation for funny science fiction. So if you like that kind of thing, humorous science fiction, get that, because it's really good. So We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. And this one's one I haven't read yet, actually, but I got very excited when I found it. But I'm going to read Differently Morphous by him first, and I'm going to read that. So Existentially Challenged, I think, is a recent one by him. I think he fell on novel writing, so I'm glad he's still writing books, because when you just sort of do it as on a whim, some people only write 1 or 2 books, but he seems to have written quite a few now, which is great. So yeah, this literally came out in 2023. So a new one from him. And then right at the end of that shelf is my big Ray Bradbury Everyman collection of short stories, which is going to play quite a significant role. I don't know if I've put this video up yet. Apologies if I have, although check it out if I have. But this is going to be what I look into to see if this has got the rest of Dark Carnival. So just to clarify that a bit, I'm doing my Ray Bradbury deep dive, and I'm about to film a video on the October Country. And the October Country is mostly made up of material from the Dark Carnival, which is the first thing that he ever published. But you can't get it anymore. It's getting reissued next year, actually. You can't get it anymore. So the stories that are not in the October Country, I'm hoping are in here. And if it is, then I'll talk about them. And I'll do it as a more general thing about Dark Carnival. But yeah, Ray Bradbury, absolute genius, contender for favourite author, and this is a great collection. So there's that one. So that's that first front bit of the shelf, and then we've got the back bit now. So we've got Excommunication, which is the 4th, I think. 3rd. Oh, it's the 3rd. So I must have read this one. This is the 3rd book in Peter Cline's X series. So the first one was X Heroes. It's a bit of fun. It's kind of a comic book thing, because it's basically superheroes against zombies, and yeah, it's a bit of fun. Not massively deep. The character called Stealth, I think she's a really good character, and she's got a little bit of pizzazz to her. So it's quite cool when she's in it. But yeah, you know, it's all right. I will complete the series because it's a bit of fun. It's not, sometimes if a book is just all right but it's fun, then you still read it. But if it's just all right and literally nothing happens, it's a bit boring, you might not be keen to read it. But yeah, this isn't going to blow your mind, but it's a little bit of fun, a little bit of a distraction. This is a book called Metamorphosis. So this is written by a friend of mine who's a brilliant author and commentator. Great. He's written tons and tons of books that are non-fiction about religion, agnosticism, atheism, belief, unbelief, doubt. You know, he's kind of like on that sort of philosophical, ideological trend in non-fiction, and his books are brilliant. So check out Jono's channel as well on YouTube. I'm going to leave a link to his channel in this video. But this is his book about a zombie apocalypse. So there's little bits of philosophy in it in the conversations, but ultimately it's just a book about zombies. But yeah, it's good though. So check that out if you want. And he's a lovely man. He's a friend of mine. But the non-fiction stuff's really good. So I don't know if I've got any here or if they're somewhere else. But definitely check out his books. So that's Jono Pierce there. This is Naomi Alderton's Power. So I am going to buddy read this with my daughter soon, because I had 2 copies and I gave her one of the copies. I said, do you want to read this? And she said yes. And she's watching the TV show, I think. So we're going to read this soon. I'm avoiding the TV show because I want to read it first. But yeah, this is supposed to be brilliant. So there's Power by Naomi Alderton. Connie Willis. I like Connie Willis. And this is quite, I think it's relatively recent one, I think, that she wrote, and it's an interesting premise where they develop technology so that in a relationship, both parts of a relationship can hear each other's thoughts, and obviously it's the consequences of that. And do you really want to know what your partner's thinking? Master and Margarita, Bulgakov. So this is a bona fide classic, and I think I'm going to like it. I'm a little bit nervous of it. I don't always have a lot of success with classics, but modern classics I tend to have more success of than older classics, pre-20th century. It's a Russian classic. It's probably got a dark sense of humour, I would imagine. But I don't know. I'm going to try it out. I like the idea of the book. I know about the plot, and I like that. But we'll see. But The Master and Margarita, I'm keen to read at some point soon. Stardust, great book. I love this book. This is due for a reread, but I'm not going to reread it yet. Maybe February, March next year or something. But yeah, I love this book. It's awesome. Neil Gaiman's awesome. This is a whole trilogy here. So this is an Adrian Tchaikovsky fantasy trilogy. So I've read some of his science fiction, but I haven't read of any of his fantasy yet. So I'm going to get to this. So I think his first books were fantasy, from what I remember. So this is quite early Tchaikovsky, I think. But I think he dips back and forth now. But I think he started off with fantasy. So which one's the first one? Is it? Does it say? Does it say? The Tiger and the, I think the Tiger and the Wolf is the first one. So the Tiger and the Wolf. These are really nice covers. So I'll let you see it properly. The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And then The Bear and the Serpent. And then The Hyena and the Hawk. All these books only have 2 characters in them, clearly. The Hyena and the Hawk, The Bear and the Serpent, and The Tiger and the Wolf. Lovely covers, aren't they? So, yeah. So that's a full trilogy that I'm going to read at some point, that I'm looking forward to reading. I like Adrian Tchaikovsky. And then another trilogy here, the First Law trilogy. And again, I've read The Blade itself, and I did a video about that. And I did a video about, it also gets mentioned a lot in my video, which is like standalone novels versus series novels, question mark. You know, what's the benefit and drawbacks of reading one book that's the full story, or a book that starts setting up a continuous series, and discussing the idea that it'd be nice if books that did start a series or in the middle of a series could stand on their own as well, which is clearly more challenging, but yeah, for the author. But yeah, so this has appeared in a couple of my videos, but I haven't read these 2 yet. So I did like it. I warmed to it by the end of it. And then there's these 2 as well. So it could be that by the time I read all 3, then I would love it. But at the moment, I like it because the first 100 pages, it's all set up. And then it starts like going into an actual story as it goes along towards the end of the book. So it did win me over, but it had to win me over. It didn't get me straight away. And then these 2 might do more for that. I've heard that it just keeps getting better and better. So Joe Abercrombie's First Law series, and then we've got Fight Club, another one that I keep floating about in my shelves and downstairs to thinking I'm going to read this next. I haven't got to it yet. I love the film, but I want to read it. So Fight Club. The God Game. This was one I bought from reading the back on the shelf. So as I was looking around the bookshop, saw that, looked interesting, and I can't actually read it because I don't have my glasses with me. I think it's like a... hold on, can I read any of it? No, I can't read any of it. I'm not going to waste time doing that. But it does say it's like an episode of Black Mirror written by Stephen King. That's what someone says on the back here. Immersive, claustrophobic, and addictive. So the God Game. Win big, lose, you die. Sound interesting. So I haven't read that yet anyway. But that's a possibility at some point. Then someone's here. So I've got a Paul Tremblay book, Head Full of Ghosts. Which again, I wanted to read before Halloween. I'm going to put these books aside to try and get to before Halloween if I can. Another one that I wanted to read before Halloween as well, Cassandra Parkins' The Slaughterman. I've mentioned one of her other books a lot called The Summer We All Ran Away, which I absolutely loved. So I probably like the way she writes. So I need to read this, The Slaughterman. Hench, a book that really attracts me because it's like a serious but slightly humorous book about the henchman and how a villain doesn't quite pay the right attention to the henchman, and then it's all about them rather than just about a villain, and they need to kind of better their lot, sort of thing. So yeah, it sounds interesting. So Hench, I'm going to read that soon, I think. So this is bought because some of my friends were talking about Lee Brackett, and also Ray Bradbury was hugely influenced and supported by Lee Brackett as well. So I do want to read The Long Tomorrow, which is one of her most famous ones, and it'd be really cool if I love it. I really hope I love it. I've put her off in the past because I wanted to like her, but just read it, man. So yeah, The Long Tomorrow, Lee Brackett. Stephen Graham Jones is really good, and this is one I haven't read yet. My Heart is a Chainsaw, so I need to read that. This is a kind of a gothic book by a local author. So I might have mentioned before that Portsmouth's got its own thing called Portsmouth Authors Collective, which yesterday, remember this is in November, but it's September today. Yesterday was the anniversary of the Portsmouth Authors Collective being created, which is pretty cool. And Helen Salisbury is one of the people that sometimes I see at these bookstalls, these street fairs that we get involved in to try and sell our books. So yeah, I need to read this at some point, but Sometimes When I Sleep is like a gothic story about ghosties. And then, oh yeah, this just about fits there. Oh my God. Happy Heretic. This is one of my many books on atheism. So Judith Hayes, The Happy Heretic. This is about how good morality and philosophy and kindness, consideration, altruism can come from an atheist outlook on life. So yeah, interesting book. This is like a what would they call it? I don't know what you'd call it actually. Like a collection of essays and things called The Portable Atheist. So this is edited, selected, and with an introduction by Christopher Hitchens. So one of the sort of famous atheists, because he wrote God Is Not Great. And yeah, the Portable Atheist is a collection of these things. So I've kept that safe because I like dipping into it sometimes. And then we've got another thing that's related to that. So I've put these things together. I've got tons up in the loft about that sort of thing as well. Marcus Brigstock's God Collar. Another one with a similar theme, but this is an older book by a Russian anarchist from the early 20th century called God and the State. So that's by Mikhail Bakunin. I think I used to pronounce that differently. How did I say it before? Bakunin. Anyway, God and the State. When I was studying Russian history, I think I pronounced things better. And then these last bits is there's a non-fiction humorous book by David Mitchell there called Thinking About It Only Makes It Worse. So I haven't read this yet. So I have read God Collar, but I haven't read this. So the Marcus Brigstock one. Marcus Brigstock is a British comedian as well. I've read that. I haven't read that yet. I think this is a really cool cover for Life of Pi. So Life of Pi by Jan Martel. I had a few copies of this, but I've got rid of the other ones and I've got this one. And it doesn't really tell you that much about the plot of the book, but I just think it looks really cool. And clearly there is a tiger as a part of the narrative. But yeah, Life of Pi, awesome stuff. And I really like that cover as well. Slow Bullets, Alistair Reynolds. So Astray, Alistair Reynolds. I've got a box of Alistair Reynolds stuff up there, but this is one that I've got closer to home. So Slow Bullets by Alistair Reynolds. Let me know if you've read that. This is another book by a friend. So this is Jim Cousins. He's a Surrey-based singer-songwriter who's had sort of some success as well. He's been on Top of the Pops and he's had a hit single and things like that. Now we kind of gig together sometimes, and we've shared vocals on things and things like that together. And he wrote this sort of parody, if you like, of the Eurovision Song Contest called Euromission Impossible. And I haven't read this yet, but I did start it, and then I ended up getting interrupted. So this is self-published, I think. So this is from Jim, and then I don't know whether you can get that online or not. You probably can. And then this is John Scalzi's Fuzzy Nation. So I'm surprised I didn't put this back in the loft, but I've only just used this to do a John Scalzi video. And I might have it down here because I did want to do a comparison between this and the original thing that this was a remake of. This is a remake of Little Fuzzies by H. Beam Piper. So yeah, I did really like this, but I've seen a couple of people literally this week be quite negative about John Scalzi on YouTube, which is quite funny because he's like not necessarily a go-to author, but if I see stuff by him, I have a look to see what it is. So yeah, that's that shelf. I better stop because we're now into 26 minutes. Thanks for watching. Please comment below on those books if there's stuff that you find interesting, or you'd like to read it, or you want to, or you've already read it, or you want to say something about the Hard Case Crime series. Go for it. Thanks a lot. Bye.